Right. So today we're going to take a deep dive into medical AI.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah. You sent us some really interesting videos about how researchers are making medical LLMs more accurate, especially when it comes to, complex reasoning in medicine.
Right.
And it seems like everybody's starting to realize that just having a massive language model,
Right.
isn't enough.
Yeah, you need something more.
You need to integrate it with, structured, codified knowledge.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not enough to just have all that data. You need to be able to interpret it in a meaningful way.
Exactly. And that's where these videos come in, right? They focus on this idea of using medical knowledge graphs to make these medical LLMs more accurate.
Yeah.
So we're talking about massive databases of medical facts.
Right.
And relationships
between all these concepts.
All organized in a way that computers can understand.
Exactly like a Wikipedia, but specifically designed for AI.
I love that. Wikipedia for medicine, but for AI.
Yeah.
So the first video we're looking at dives into a method developed at Harvard.
Okay.
It's called KG Raven.
KG Raven.
It stands for Knowledge Graph-Based Agent for Complex Knowledge-Intensive Question Answering in Medicine.
Catchy.
Yeah, real catchy.
Yeah.
But the idea, I think, is pretty elegant.
It is.
They're essentially combining the language processing power of LLMs with that vast structured knowledge of a medical knowledge graph.
It's like giving the LLM a superpower medical textbook.
Ooh,
and then teaching it how to actually use it effectively.
Yeah, and they even highlight how even the most advanced LLMs still kind of struggle.
Right.
With complex medical reasoning.
Yeah.
Especially when they have to deal with multiple medical concepts at once.
Absolutely.
Because they just don't have that kind of inherent structured knowledge.
It's like trying to diagnose a disease based on just a few random internet searches.
Right.
You might get lucky, but
it's not reliable.
Not when lives are at stake.
No. Yeah, definitely not. And the video actually mentions that current medical LLMs score below 50% on expert level medical tests.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
Which, that's clearly not good enough.
No.
So KG Raven aims to address this.
Okay.
By focusing on 4 key phases.
All right.
Generate, review, revise, and answer.
I like it.
It sounds like the scientific method, but for medical AI.
It's a very apt comparison.
So tell me about it. How does this work?
Well, it starts with the generate phase.
Okay.
Where the LLM breaks down a medical question into these key concepts.
Okay.
And then proposes relationships between them.
Okay.
It's almost like the LLM is formulating a hypothesis based on its understanding of the medical concepts.
I see. So it's trying to come up with potential connections.
Right.
Between the different pieces of information.
Exactly.
Okay. So then we move on to the review phase.
Yeah.
And this is where the knowledge graph steps in to kind of check the LLM's work.
Right. It's like having a super smart medical textbook fact checking.
Oh, I like that. A fact checker.
The LLM's work.
So it's comparing the LLM's output.
Yes.
To the actual medical knowledge that's stored in this graph.
That's right. And they use something called UMLS.
ULS.
Which is the Unified Medical Language System.
Oh.
To do this mapping between what the LLM is saying and what's in the graph.
And is that to make sure that the LLM is speaking the same language as the knowledge graph?
Exactly. Yeah, you want to make sure that they're both on the same page.
So we're ensuring accuracy every step of the way.
Right.
All right, so what happens in the revise phase?
So in the revise phase, if the LLM's initial relationships that it came up with don't match up with what's in the knowledge graph, it doesn't just give up.
Okay.
It actually tries to adjust and refine those relationships based on the feedback it gets from the knowledge graph.
So it's my first guess wasn't quite right. Let me reevaluate.
Exactly.
And try again.
It's learning and improving.
Wow.
It's understanding of these connections between medical concepts.
So it's constantly getting smarter.
Yeah.
Okay, finally we get to the answer phase.
Right.
And that's when the LLM actually delivers its final verdict on the medical question.
That's right. But because it's gone through this whole process of generate, review, revise, the answer is much more likely to be accurate.
Right. Because it's not just pulling it out of thin air.
Exactly. It's grounding its response in the knowledge of that medical knowledge graph.
So it's basically taking the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah.
It's taking the linguistic power of the LLM, but it's also making sure that it's grounded in that factual knowledge from the knowledge graph.
Right. It's combining those two strengths.
To get to a better answer.
And what they found is that this actually works.
Oh, that's good.
KG Raven really did improve the accuracy of medical question answering.
Especially for these complex questions.
Especially when you have multiple concepts you're dealing with.
That sounds really promising.
It does.
But before we get too carried away,
Sure.
I want to dive a little bit deeper into how these 4 phases actually work in practice.
Okay.
And how they address those limitations that we were talking about.
Yeah, let's unpack those a little bit more and look at those phases in more detail.
Awesome. Excited.
Yeah. So we got to unpack these 4 phases, right? Generate, review, revise, and answer.
Okay.
Remember, the whole point is to like combine the language skills of the LLM with those hard facts from the medical knowledge graph.
Yeah, I mean, that integration seems to be key here.
It is. It is.
So walk me through it.
Okay.
Like, how do these phases actually play out when we're using this in practice?
Right. So it starts with generate, right? The LLM gets the question. And it starts brainstorming. You know, it identifies the key medical concepts.
Right.
And then it tries to connect them, forms what they call triplets.
Triplets?
Yeah, basically little statements like condition X, you know, causes symptom Y.
Okay.
Or, you know, treatment A is used for disease B.
I see.
Stuff like that.
So the LLM is like using its language skills to kind of come up with these potential relationships.
Yeah.
Almost like a doctor making hypotheses based on symptoms.
Exactly. Yeah. But of course, not all hypotheses are good hypotheses.
Right.
So that's where review comes in.
Okay.
It's like, you know, having that super smart medical textbook.
Yeah.
Fact checking the LLM's work.
Yeah, and that fact checking happens against the knowledge graph, right?
Exactly. So it's comparing those triplets that the LLM generated to that huge knowledge in the graph. And if something doesn't line up, it gets flagged like, hey.
It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah. This isn't...
You're making stuff up.
Yeah, this is not consistent with what we know medically.
So it's ensuring that the LLM isn't just making things up.
Yeah.
Like its reasoning is based on real medical evidence.
Precisely.
Okay. And that leads us to revise.
Yes.
So what happens there?
So instead of just, you know, tossing those wrong triplets out,
the
LLM actually learns from its mistakes. So it tries to adjust, you know, its understanding of the relationship. Based on that feedback from the knowledge graph.
So it's constantly refining, like, its understanding to get closer to a medically sound answer.
Exactly. It's this back and forth, you know. Yeah. It helps it really, you know, understand those nuances. Yeah. And the complexity of medical knowledge.
Okay, cool. So we've gone back and forth.
Yes.
LLM knowledge graph back and forth.
Right.
Now we're at the answer phase.
Yeah.
So is this where the LLM kind of like gives its final verdict?
This is it. This is the moment of truth. The LLM says, okay, based on everything I've learned, this is my answer.
And it's more likely to be accurate.
Way more likely.
Because it's gone through that whole process.
It's not just, you know...
It's got the experience.
Yeah, it's seen it all. You know, it's had to revise its thinking. It's had to really dig deep.
Yeah.
So the researchers found, you know, KG Raven really boosted the accuracy, especially with those complex questions.
The ones with multiple concepts.
Yeah, where you have... you know, multiple things going on. It even outperformed some of the bigger LLMs. Yeah. Even though it was using a smaller model itself.
Wow. So it's not just about size, it's about how you use the knowledge.
It's about smarts, not just size.
I like that.
So that really shows you how powerful it can be to integrate that structured knowledge.
It's really impressive.
Yeah, it is.
But, you know, earlier you mentioned that this video really focuses on KG Raven.
Right.
Which is the Harvard method. What about the second video?
Okay, so the second video...
What approach are they taking?
This one's from a UC Berkeley.
Okay.
And they call their method GIVI.
GIVI.
Which stands for Graph-Inspired Veracity Extrapolation. Another catchy name.
Yeah.
So they're tackling a slightly different problem.
Okay, what's that?
What happens when your knowledge graph isn't complete? You know, if it's missing some information.
Which, let's face it, in medicine, that happens all the time.
All the time, our understanding is constantly evolving.
We're learning new things every day.
Exactly.
So GIVE is designed to deal with those gaps.
That's right. It's designed to work even when we don't have all the answers.
So how does it do that?
Well, it uses the LLM to kind of make educated guesses.
Educated guesses.
Yeah, it extrapolates, you know, potential relationships between medical concepts, even if those relationships aren't in the graph.
That sounds kind of risky, though.
It does a little bit, right?
Yeah. How do we know if those extrapolated relationships are actually accurate?
Well, that's where the counterfactual reasoning comes in.
Counterfactual reasoning?
Yeah, so GIVIS doesn't just look at what is true.
Okay.
It also looks at what is not true.
Oh, interesting.
It analyzes both correct and incorrect examples.
So it can kind of adjust its thinking?
Exactly. It helps it to avoid...
Based on what doesn't work?
Yeah, making those unfounded assumptions.
Okay, so it's kind of like saying, okay, well, this connection didn't pan out.
Right.
Let's adjust our thinking and try a different approach.
Exactly. It's constantly learning and refining.
It's amazing.
It's understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that makes it really powerful, especially when you have these situations where the knowledge graph is incomplete.
Yeah.
Or, new research is coming out all the time.
So it can keep up with the latest developments.
It can adapt.
That's amazing. It's like giving the LLM the ability to kind of think outside the box.
Yeah.
But still within, the boundaries of what's medically plausible.
Precisely. You don't want it going too far off the rails.
Yeah.
But you want it to be able to explore those new possibilities. And that's what makes both of these approaches, KG Raven and really exciting.
They're really cool.
Because they're not just about information retrieval. It's about teaching these LLMs to reason, to actually learn about medicine in a much deeper way.
In a more nuanced way.
In a much more reliable way.
Yeah, which at the end of the day, that's what really matters.
That's what matters. We want to make sure that this technology is accurate. Reliable and ultimately beneficial to patients.
Absolutely.
Right? That's the whole point.
Yeah. So speaking of benefits, I'm actually really curious to hear more about the specific ways that these knowledge graph enhanced LLMs could really impact healthcare.
Okay.
Like, could you give me some concrete examples of how they might actually be used in practice?
Yeah, let's dive into that.
So we've been talking about these, really cool approaches to medical AI.
Yeah.
Combining, LLMs with these knowledge graphs.
Right.
And it seems like the knowledge graphs are super important.
They are.
To make sure that the AI's reasoning is actually sound and accurate.
They provide that grounding, in real medical knowledge.
So how do these knowledge graphs actually help doctors though?
Okay, so imagine a doctor.
Yeah.
Right? They've got a really complex case.
Okay.
Maybe a patient comes in with some unusual symptoms. Things that don't quite add up.
Right.
They could use one of these knowledge graph enhanced LLMs to explore, potential diagnoses, treatment options by cross-referencing, the patient's information with all that medical knowledge in the graph.
So it's like having a consultant.
It is like having a superpowered consultant right there at their fingertips.
Sifting through tons of data.
Yeah, able to see connections.
And finding connections.
That a human doctor might miss.
The human might miss, because they're just not able to process that much information.
Exactly. Our brains just aren't wired that way.
Yeah, and, these LLMs are trained on so much data.
So much data.
They can identify those subtle patterns.
Right.
That, even a really experienced doctor might overlook.
And that can be crucial, for making the right diagnosis.
Absolutely. I mean, that could lead to faster diagnoses.
Absolutely.
More accurate diagnoses.
And even save lives.
Yeah, especially in emergency situations.
Yeah, exactly where time is of the essence.
Wow. So it's not just about diagnosis either, right?
No, it's not.
It's also about treatment.
You get help with treatment too.
So these LLMs can actually help doctors come up with more personalized treatment plans.
Right, by analyzing the patient's medical history, their genetic profile, lifestyle factors.
Yeah.
All of that can be factored in.
To create a treatment that's really tailored to them.
To that individual patient.
Wow. So it's really moving us towards this future of personalized medicine.
It is. It's exciting.
Where, treatments are optimized for each individual person.
Right.
Rather than this kind of one-size-fits-all approach.
And that's where the real power of these LLMs comes in. They're not just giving you an answer. They're helping doctors make better decisions, provide better care.
I mean, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
Into the world of medical AI.
It's amazing to see what's happening.
Yeah. It's mind-blowing to see how researchers are really pushing those boundaries.
Absolutely.
Combining, the LLMs and the knowledge graphs.
And we're just at the beginning,
Yeah.
This is just the tip of the iceberg.
It's only going to get more exciting from here.
As this research keeps advancing.
Yeah, who knows what the future holds.
Maybe one day these AI systems will be helping us discover new cures.
Maybe even predict diseases.
Predict and prevent diseases.
Before they even happen.
That's the ultimate goal.
That would be amazing.
Right?
Well, if you're as intrigued by all of this as we are.
Yes.
Be sure to check out those videos.
Yeah, the research is fascinating.
There's so much more to learn.
And it's changing all the time.
We've just, scratched the surface here.
Right, this is just a starting point.
But it's a really exciting starting point.
It is.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.